But this, Tom is the Administrator, Public Health Officer for the City-Cowley County Health Department, and he is going to be speaking about SARS-CoV2, what we've learned and what may be ahead. We'll take some questions, and I guess we can take questions throughout it if people have you have them, just raise your hand and speak. Won't go through all of his bio, but it's on the back here. And I think you're coming up on, is it your 7th anniversary in August that he's been in this position? So very happy. He's a very been a very busy man. You can read how busy he's been. So let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you, Pam. Good morning, everybody. I'd like to say it's wonderful to be here again. I guess it's good to be here again because it proves that we are and it can be. Let me stand to the side and
Now,
everybody
is that okay
the
as far as
screen.
lights and stuff? Everyone can see? Well, okay.
Pam mentioned what I'd like to do today is just kind of take a look back briefly, examine what we've recently gone through, where we're at today, and then kind of project forward for you what we think is going to happen in the weeks and months to come yet throughout 2022. And there's a lot of, as with everything, there's a lot of uncertainty out there. I mentioned to Pam at the onset, when this all began, we took a look at things and we looked back at other worldwide pandemics and how things progress with the population. And we calculated in some factors that were really quite variable, but we had anticipated that, something like of this nature takes us about 4 years to get through the volatile period to where we kind of find some kind of stability. And sadly, that has not been off by much. We know that things are always subject to change, and I hope I'm wrong with some of the things, but I'm going to take a look in the first slide here a little bit about the pandemic timeline. Pam, when she introduced me, defined my roles within the county, and for the longest time, for a good 4.5, 5 years, nobody knew who I was, and that was okay. It was, and you don't know how much I've pined for those days. I thought, I'm going to come to Cowley County. It's going to be quiet. It's going to be calm. I'll be able to sail through till I'm finished with public health, and I'll ride off into the sunset. And the good Lord said, "Here, hold my beer." We go back to when it began, but there are two roles, or two hats that I wear, and recent events really have made those quite noticeable. One is the administrator of the health department, which is basically the CEO. I take care of the business part of public health in the county, making sure we have proper funding, we have good folks that do the work, that we fund, we provide the services. And the other role is that of the public health officer. The public health officer role is the one that has a lot of power to it. And people never really understood what that was, but I always knew, exactly where the boundaries were and where I have authority and where I don't. And basically what the public health officer's charge is in a county the size of ours is to make sure that I act in a prudent fashion to stop any type of onset of communicable disease or its spread. So I can't affect you before you're sick. And when you're well, I'm very happy for you. But that time when you're ill, that's kind of when you belong to me. And so it's kind of scary in some points. But people, have not truly understood that. And one of the other things that in Kansas law that exists is the fact that in communities where we have over 100,000 residents, the public health officer must be a licensed physician. And those that are under one who has qualified and who has a physician that advises he or she may serve in that role. And that's the capacity I have. There's been a lot of, he's not qualified. And I'm like, I've been in public health for 17 years. I have responded to more emergencies in my role at the state and then now at the county level that, know exactly what we need to do. But I don't ever try to exert more authority than what I can, and I always try to do it with the best interest of the citizens and the communities that I serve, because I do take that role very, very seriously. In 2020, this all started, and it started in March. And oddly enough, in that month, I issued my very first public health order in Cowley County. And it wasn't until January of 2022 that I issued my second. And the first one caught everybody kind of off guard because nobody knew what was going on. You remember spring break of 2020. The school districts, of course, they all break about the same time, and families went off on vacations, and they went off to Disneyland and places like that in Orlando, where we first started to see cases pop up, and then they would come back. And so, of course, not knowing what to expect, we said, when folks come back, if they've been to these places, if they've been on a cruise, they've been to this and this place, we would like you to stay home for 2 weeks. You would have thought I was taking away somebody's birthday because it was a horrible thing, what I did, you know. I was bailed out by the governor less than a week later when they closed everything down. And so, you know, and then that started all of that ruckus, which the repercussions of that are still going on. Then, of course, you know, in the first confirmed case we had in Cowley County was the 1st of April. It was not a joke. It was real. First case, first fatality, about 15 days after. November in November of 2020, the alpha wave set in. For those that haven't figured it out, this virus has had many iterations. The original Wuhan variant, the alpha variant, several beta variants. They skipped over C. They went right to the Delta variant, and then they skipped over some other numbers, and now we've got Omicron, and I don't know what the next one's going to be. I really, truly don't. But that kind of goes all the way through, and you can see some of the what I consider to be important dates. A year ago, at this point in time, on Saturdays, we were busy, busy, busy. We had more people standing in line and running through the health department on Saturday mornings than I had ever seen before, and everybody was wanting to be vaccinated. And we didn't have enough vaccine. And you remember all those, I mean, it's been one crisis after the next. We hit a magic point in May of last year where we had fewer than 20 cases in an entire month. You know, and I knew it wasn't gone, but it had calmed. And everybody says, it's over. We're done. Yeah, and we went on about it. And then, of course, in July, right about the time we were starting to worry about summer activities. We had the fair, we had Walnut Valley, and then we knew into the fall was coming with other events, you know, like down in Ark City, that was coming, and we could already start to see it go. But boy, we stayed on top of it, and we were really quite fortunate, I believe, in our county. We did not have as bad a time in this area as we did before. And then, well, then everything got flipped over again. And we came up into December, and the Omicron variant arrived in Cowley County at that point in time, and it combated with Delta big time. I had probably 200 people that had active cases of Delta at the end of November, moving into December. And the crazy thing about SARS-CoV2 is that we can only test for the presence of it. We don't have the capacity in the county to take a look at the genetic sequencing of the virus to say this is different, to where we could identify which variant was which. And so we've had both of them moving around. Now, to this point in time, Omicron has pretty much pushed everything else out, and it is 98% of the time what we will find when those things are genetically sequenced. So with that kind of with that kind of certainty, we can say, yeah, most people are getting that at this point. But if you'll remember, people said, oh, Omicron, it's nothing more than a little sniffle. 13 people have died from that little sniffle in a little bit over a month. 2,600 plus new cases by that first time people got it. And an additional 900 cases that were reinfections. In other words, people who have had COVID before got it again. That's what Omicron brought to our county. And that happened all within about a 30-day time period. So, yeah, I'm glad to be here today. Rankings, the state would rank counties as how are we and where are we at, and you can see right down here where Cowley County is. We ranked about 31st. Now that's good because the lower the number, the higher the ranking as far as what we were doing to be protective. We are one, for a county the size of Cowley, we are one of the most testing places in the state. You may have to call and you may have to get it, but if you want to test, you can get a test. There were a lot of other counties where you could not. And there are a lot of counties that you still can't. And there are a lot of the larger population counties where it really became a problem. If you remember in January, the last time I was screaming and crying in the paper was one day I'm calling saying, hey, we need more test kits, and we're told you can't have any more. And it blew my mind. We had to go back and retool and do everything it was. It was supply chain interruptions and things that we had, by the box full and could do whenever we needed to, all of a sudden were gone because of the sudden crush we had. We were outside in the mornings testing 125, 130 people a day. When for us normally it's about 15. So to see the numbers grow that dramatically was just outrageous. We've not been real fortunate in some areas, however, and you can see here the number of analytical tests we've performed in 24 months is over 36,000. 36,000 people have been tested. Now, that's total number. Some people have been tested multiple times. There are a lot of people who will never be tested because they just won't do it. And it's proven fact that if you don't test, you don't have it. The number of discrete positive cases. Now that was not updated yesterday because the system at KDHE is undergoing maintenance. But I would venture to say that we're teetering right at that 10,000 mark. Now that's discrete, that's individuals. That does not count if you had it once and then you had it again. That's not two cases. It's counted as individuals. So when we say it's a discrete number, that's what we mean. Okay? So what does that mean to me? Well, it means how many of this number were never vaccinated? Okay? And then I can pull that number out and I can take a look at those folks that were vaccinated, and we kind of get a sense of where are we with acquired and naturally occurring immunity in the population, and it helps us kind of project forward what may come next. This number right here, the number of deaths, is one that bothers me a lot. For a county our size, a population of a county like what we've got, 34,500 people, that is outrageous. We are one of it has been more deadly here than it has been in other places. Now there are reasons behind that. We skew very, very much to being older, and we skew exceptionally to being not in good physical condition. Those folks that are younger that have died have been absolutely not in good physical condition. They've had other types of competing problems, obesity, diabetes, things like that. They really do lead into that, and that's sad. Number of people vaccinated, 18,166 with at least one dose of vaccine. Okay, totally in our community. We take a look at the vaccination rate, and we know that we're just over right about 54 to 59%, and it will fluctuate because every time the vaccines say they're now being made available for the younger age cohort, that changes those numbers, those percentages. We were really doing pretty well. Of the over 60 group, 70%. Didn't surprise me. Didn't surprise me. It's when you get under 40, and people just, they're bulletproof. This was as of the end of 2020. I left this in here because it made me laugh. This shows you how we tested by month. Back in this time period, we didn't have anything to do. We were just learning how to test. Okay, but it also showed too where we were at, as far as illness goes, and how it started to pop, and then boom, September, October, November, December, and this is where I thought the world was coming to an end the first time. Oh my God, this is terrible. I mean, honestly, I've been in public health for 17 years. I've lived for well over 60. I've never seen anything like this. It's a first for all of us. This is a number that, a map that comes out every week. If you go out to KDHE's website, you'll see it. You can come down and find Cowley County, and you can see, this is when I was here last time. Okay, this is where I was. The number was 2887, okay? And then of course you compare that to where it was now, 9930. And I know of an additional 20 cases that we've found in that week, so I changed it to the 9950 on my other slide. But this is what it looks like, and you can go out there and you can see how it changes. And you can see down here the South Central region, how it clusters. So, yeah, it's been a busy couple of years. These are some comparisons that I think you might want to pay special attention to. In January of 2021, this was coming out of that incredibly terrible winter, where we saw case upon case in November and December, and then in January we had 828 cases in January of 2021. This year, 2,655 in 1 month. This blew that number so far out of the water that I still have a hard time wrapping my head around it. Now, this number is not the total number of people that were ill. Judith, God love her, never quotes me correctly. She was asking me, and I said, Judith, I says, yeah. I says, that number isn't correct. We know of at least 900 more people, okay, that don't appear in that number, which would have made this number around 3,500 if it was cases for the month. Okay, that's what we knew about. And we also had information from folks that flat out told me, yeah, I was sick, but I didn't come test. You don't get this kind of illness transmission by people following public health rules. If you're sick, stay home. Man, if I could just get people to do that. If you're sick, stay home. Go get tested, find out for sure, recover, and then return. So far in 2022, you can see, where we're at, and this number is 64% of what we did last year in February. So it begs the question, what's going to happen for the rest of the year? That's the part that is kind of scary. Over the pandemic's history, you can see that nice gliding curve that's going to continue to go up. This will never come down, but the rate at which it expands, vertically up is what I'm concerned about. We saw a great spike in the cases in January, and so when I take a look at all of this and I reflect back, I have a list of my greatest hits, and that's kind of because of we're a music town, where we started off the whole thing with all of the shutdowns and then all of the politics that came in. That was really crazy, that first year. The legislature in their wisdom almost put your local health department out of business that day. because they forgot that there are two health departments that are structured under the same original format that most of them were 75 years ago. And that's in a joint fashion. There's county health departments, and then you have joint boards of health. Two counties have joint boards of health, Cowley and Lawrence, and Douglas. So you've got the Lawrence Douglas Health Department, and you have City-Cowley County. What does that mean exactly? Well, what it means is, in all of the other communities, over the 75 years that public health has been active at the county level in the state, communities said, for whatever reasons, and most of them were economic, we don't want to fund this. Make the county do it. And they gave away their authority, okay, to have any input in public health to the county, and that means the county created it as a department, just like road and bridge or anything else, you know. And so most county health departments are county departments. We're not. Okay, we are not. We are organized under a discrete board of health that is has appointed members that come from the county commission, come from the city commissions, and come from local school boards. That way we have a diverse group of people that sit on that board of health that I report to. And it also gives us a much greater, I think, reach across the county to hear what people have to say. And they all have an interest in public health. Whereas with every other county in the state, other than those two, the commissioners are the board of health. So we have 9, okay, everybody else has 3. Interesting. So, you know, and like I say, in our board of health, I've got a nurse from Udall, I've got somebody from from Burton, got someone from Dexter, got people from Arc City, from Winfield. It's a nice, diverse group. You know, they keep me in check, but they also are very gracious in that they absolutely understand that when I come to them with something, I'm not doing it, you know, just because I'm on a power trip. Shortages, man, we've had them. We've gone through those things over and over again. You know, the masks you're wearing that we couldn't get. I remember when it all started, I could buy a surgical mask like that for a nickel. They went up to $2 a piece. By the way, there's a box here that I brought, has KN95s in it. They're 2 in a package. They do me absolutely no good in packages. If you want those, take them home, okay? Political follies. If politics would have stayed out of public health, by the end of the summer of last year, we likely would have reached a 70% vaccination rate. Honestly, because it was coming out, it was showing that it was working. But oh my God, you know, if I could just shut that noise off, and if they would have just let us do our job, how much better we would have been today. The mask mandates, we'll talk about that. Of course, vaccination, herd immunity, and then endemic. These are the things that are on my list. So the mask or not the mask, look at all of you today, wonderful, but I will be honest with you. How many of you have been vaccinated? Have any of you had it? Okay, I've been vaccinated. I've had 3 doses of it. Okay, I'm not due for a 4th for a little while yet. I'll take it. I'm not worried about it. I didn't hear radio in my head. I didn't have any body part fall off. I had a sore arm. I felt sick for a day or 2 when I took the second doses, the second and the third dose. But I have been in face-to-face contact with thousands and thousands of people, and I have held the virus in my hands so many times. I can't even think of it, you know. But I have done everything that I am supposed to do. I will never go into one of those situations without wearing one of these, okay? And I, of course, always wear glasses and gloves and those kinds of things. These are all okay, but at varying degrees. What do they truly protect us from? I'll tell you what, they will protect you quite adequately if you are in a group of people that you don't know and somebody there is doing what they always do. I can't miss this event. It's okay that I have a fever this morning and I've been coughing and I just gotta go because, you know, it's never gonna come around again that the Bridge Club will meet. And, and that's the truth. It's what people do. Or, you know, an employer says, oh, you've been off for 2 days, you gotta get back or you're gonna lose your job. And there's where I take umbrage, great umbrage, because that's a big problem. So I put those up. I was mentioning to Pam, I do not want to be a hypocrite. It bothers me to wear these things for a great period of time. It physically does. When we were working through the January mess, I had one of these things on for about 5 to 6 hours a day. You can see on my face not just the ring, but I mean it you know, I was like a teenager again, you know, starting to break out, you know, that, and they're not designed for extended use. They're not designed for extended wear. You've got to respirate properly, but they are designed if you are sick and you have one of these on, and I'm wearing one of those, I can be around you for 25 hours straight without risking infection. The reason be is those are absolutely fit, and every year we go through fit testing. Okay, at the health department, if you're in that kind of work, you have to wear one of those, and you measure it, and we make sure that nothing else gets into that. The other masks that we wear, not so much. They're a barrier. Okay, and I'll tell you, when I was running back and forth in the line talking to hundreds of people, I would take this thing off at the end of that first round before we had to go into the lab, and it was like a wet diaper, and you know, it's just disgusting. And so we would put them away, and I'm grateful that we have enough of them. I do not ridicule people. I want them to do whatever makes them feel comfortable and makes them feel safe. But I also know that, like in a room like this, even with this number of people today, having no mask on, I'm at no greater risk than I would be if I'm grocery shopping at Dillon's, in my office at work. There are certain risks we'll take, but they're not wonderful. Talked a little bit about my roles, the health officer actions, and then the public health orders, and then the public health guidance. I think it's important for people to understand where that comes from. This is a copy of the CDC KDHE guidance that dropped on my desk right after November, first part of December. We had been rocking along all the way through the pandemic. At the very beginning, remember, it was 14 days. I don't care what it is, you got to be stuck away for 14 days. And then we started getting smart. We started watching. We looked, we saw, we tracked. I mean, that's what we do. We observe these things and we track it. And we say, you know what? What we're seeing is, 1 to 14 days is that's the end of the distribution curve, but we're not seeing any at 1. We're really, truly not seeing any at 14. And we said, it all happens within 10 days. And we know that with the onset, if you're exposed, we're not going to see anything. We can't even find it in testing until at minimum day 3. Most likely the best part is between day 4 and 5. And so we adjusted and we amended things, saying, you've been exposed. How you feeling? You feel fine? No symptoms? Nothing? Don't come see me until you start to feel something, because I want to know that we're testing somebody that has that exposure and all that. Because people would rush early on to get tested. The test would come back negative. They think, oh, I'm in the clear, and then 3 days later they were sick. So we made adjustments, okay, and it worked. And we found out, okay, so here's how you treat this. You want to test at day 3. You want to isolate for 10 days following the confirmation, because at that point in time, you know that they're going to have that increasing viral load by day 5, day 6. That's the maximum peak by day 10. It's gone. It's gone to the point that they're no longer going to be able to spread it. Doesn't mean that you're not going to have it in your body and you're still going to shed it, but it's not active anymore. It's really a unique virus in that respect. And so we had that. And we established what was called in our county the 10-day isolation protocol. And we were following that all through 2021, and it worked perfectly. The schools knew it. The doctors knew it. Everybody gave the exact same information. Funny thing happened at Thanksgiving of 2021. The airlines were telling their pilots, if you're not vaccinated, you can't fly. Okay? They told everybody, you got to do this, or we're like, they told people what they must do. They didn't say do it voluntarily, and then if not, take some other type of action. No, it was this way or the highway. And all of a sudden, flights started getting canceled at the busiest time of the year. Do you think that was coincidental? No. So what happened? Political pressure was once again put on, public health. And the CDC said, well, okay, this one doesn't seem to be as bad, so we'll let you go for 5 days. And if you're feeling okay, you can come back. But you got to wear a mask for 5 days everywhere you go. Not just in public, but you got to wear it at home and everything else. I call it the 5+5 plan. And then there were all these other things that were in here. Ours was one thing. If you test positive, 10 days isolation. Good. See you later. Go. Recover. Get back to normal quickly. And that's what we've stayed with. All of this came on and all of this changed. And of course, mask wearing in Cowley County generally looks kind of like this. And so I knew. I have 3/4 of the population that is vehemently opposed to mask wearing. Okay. And they won't do it. So what would make me think for even one moment that because of this change that magically everybody is going to run and wear a mask for 5 days? No, it's not. They heard one number, 5 days. That's all they heard. They heard 5 days as opposed to 10 days. On the 17th of January, Martin Luther King Day, a special meeting was held in Arc City at 470's, the 470's Board of Education, where they decided they wanted to set public health policy. I knew that it was coming. They didn't invite me to the meeting. They didn't listen to the guidance that I had reiterated to them on the 14th, saying, do not do this. We are not moving in lockstep this time with the CDC and with KDHE. We are not, because there's no proof that the 5 days is safe. We don't know currently that everything is Omicron and that it's all very mild. I had people that were in bed sick for 14 days at the time, and it was ballooning. And I had employers telling me, you can't do this, I have to have people back, they've got to be back working. And I'm like, oh, what do you do? Oh, we've got a restaurant. And I'm like, so you telling me you want to bring an ill person back to work so that you can expose the rest of your staff and you can expose your clientele? I will never eat in your establishment again. And that was what caused me to write a specific order saying that we are not going to move from there. And of course, it was challenged in court. We won. I didn't violate statute. It was very specific. I said, if you're sick, we know you're sick because you tested positive, I'm placing you under isolation for 10 days. Go recover before you come back. That's the extent of what people are angry at me about right now, because they don't understand it. It's 5 days. So now we're looking at saying, well, what's the difference? If you're 25 years old and you're fit and you're fine and you had it and it's very slight, okay, you know what? At day 7, take an antigen test. If the antigen test says it's negative, we'll release you and you can go back. But for everybody that's out there that's struggling with it, and there are folks that are struggling with it. I'm telling you, my wife got it. Now let me explain to you the exact thing that happened. She said, I don't feel quite right. I've got this scratchy thing in my throat and a little bit of a cough, and I'm the public health officer. And I look at her across the room, and I jump in the car, and I go get a test. I have that capacity. Test her. Oh my goodness, am I glad it's just two of us in the house and we had all the extra bedrooms. So I move into one, she moves into the other. I seal her off, put the tape on. Say, honey, I'll see you in 10 days. I'll leave your stuff in here. Do not come out while I'm here. And we had to live that way in the house. And I'm walking around in an N95 mask in my home. I didn't want to go home. I was like, but I couldn't. It was horrid. She recovered. But I'll tell you why. I watched her very closely. She is now 2.5 weeks post-infection, and she still is dragging. Okay? She has, by about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, it's all she can do anymore because the fatigue is still there. The lingering post-COVID, I hear it constantly, and it just, and it makes me really, really concerned. She could no more have gone back to work on the 6th day post-infection than I could walk on water. It just is impossible. It wouldn't happen. And so I know that I did the right thing. And I saw young people suffer with it as well. I had younger employees that got it, and they said, boss, I know it's day 10, but man, can I have a couple extra days? I'm like, I don't want you back if you're not at full strength. Because number one, you're not going to be a good employee. Number two, you're just going to risk, making a mistake or something in what you do. Number three, you're gonna expose other people to it, and that's not what we want to have people see. This isn't. Number four, what kind of a hypocrite would I be to say, you must come back? But I was tested during this time period every single day. Because I gotta tell you, every time I had a sniffle, I was freaking out. Like, is it my turn? Is it finally my time? And it wasn't. So this chart shows what we went through. See, 2020, when we thought the world was coming to an end the first time, and then see here, this was all that nice little Delta stuff, and then see how it started to really get active again. Now, the beautiful part about this was right in here, was where we had some of the best events, and we were glad to be able to do it. We stood out there and we will do anything that we can to support the community. So we got with Bart for the first time ever. Bart, I think public health was on the grounds, and we were testing people, and we were providing vaccinations, and it was amazing to me the number of campers that came up and took advantage of that, and how much they thanked us, for what they did. But then it all cooked. But look at where it was. So we were after week 52 in there. And then in January, boom. Now, right here is where I had Board of Health meeting, because we always do it at the beginning of the month. And I was sitting there talking to the Board of Health, and I was telling them, folks, this is my problem. This is my fear. This is what we're seeing. We've got the 10-day protocol. It works. CDC hasn't provided me any evidence that says 5 days is the best time. I know that our population won't wear the masks. I am going to recommend that we stay with the 10-day protocol. And they all looked at me and said, great. Fine, no problem. Okay. The way we would normally take care of business, we took care of business. But on that 17th, as his numbers were shooting up, I didn't convene, and I can't, because I am not on the Board of Health. Only the chair of the Board of Health can convene a special meeting. We didn't. We just talked about it on the phone. And I went about doing the business of taking care of the population's health. It peaks, and then now we're starting to see it decline, and we're seeing it decline quickly. And that's very, very good. But you got to remember, it takes time for 3,000 people to recover. Even if tomorrow nobody tested at all, or we had zero, I still have people that are ill that are coming out of that illness. And they get angry at me when I say, no, it's got to be this way for at least another 4 to 6 weeks. Because what I want to see is I want to see us get back to here, where they think it's all over. And amazingly, it won't matter then. Because if you're not sick, then you're not going to be in. And if nobody's testing, then the 10-day protocol is really moot. But what we've learned is that on average, if you catch this virus, it will take you 11 days to recover to a point where you feel like you can start doing something again. That's on average. Okay, some are quicker than others. We understand that, we acknowledge that. But there's a difference. Guidance. You know, you really shouldn't speed. Okay? Order. Speed limit 60. Okay. Understanding the difference. KDHE and CDC can only issue guidance. Public health officer and the state health officer can issue the order. And again, I took a look at everybody and I said, how many orders have I issued that have affected the entirety of the population? 2. Now, I have issued well over 3,000 orders for individuals. And you know what? It's because they asked me to do so because they needed to have it for their employer. The employer, and it's always that, I need it for my work, I need it for the employer. So I understand the pressures that the private sector has on it. I understand what they are. Those orders, if I were to issue it to you or to you directly, I can put you in quarantine for an X number of days, and then I can put you into isolation for another period of time, if need be. And all of that is to protect public health. In other words, I don't want contagion. I don't want it spread. It's funny in that 100 years ago, I would have had so much more authority than I do today. I could have set a building. I could have taken over a building, and everybody that got it had to go to that building. You know, today, enforcement authority is darn near non-existent. The statute says, yeah, I can charge Bart back there with a Class C misdemeanor. Yeah, that's not going to go over very good, you know. So that's the thing, and people know it, and it's good that we're in a situation like that where people don't do it. So you know, but it's not something that I take great pleasure in doing. And we think about every one of those moves very, very closely, and we can show the evidence as to why we make those decisions. And I don't make them by myself. For those of you that don't know, about 3.5 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, I had 3 physicians that consulted with me at the health department. 2 of them sat on my board of health, and the third was an individual that took care of our family planning program. And in one fell swoop, all 3 of them left the community. One, because the offer to practice was better with Ascension, and moved just up the road, 35-40 minutes. That's Dr. Kiesling, who still is my paid consultant, because I trust the young gentleman, and we have got a marvelous rapport. He knows the community. He practiced in Arc City. That's where he got his start. He worked down there for years. And the other 2 were Rohrberg and, oh gosh, now I can't remember. I can see her. Her husband was an attorney here in town. Anyway. The other two young ladies, okay, left the community, and they're gone. And so I went from 3 physicians to almost none, and it's really difficult. If you think it's difficult to get somebody to serve in a volunteer capacity on a board, try going to a professional who works kind of hours that they do. And while they would love to help, they really don't have the capacity to. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at, because our Board of Health has a requirement that I have a physician sitting on it, and that physician must practice in Cowley County. We've not, in a year and a half, been able to fill that role. The pandemic was a big part of it. So what we're doing, we're currently looking at a change in our charter resolution. In other words, the joint resolution between the county and the two cities, where we go in and add a little bit of extra verbiage that says, you know, in the event that we don't have one in the county, that we may be able to use one that's out. Because I've got one that will do it, he just doesn't practice in the boundary of that big square. And so we're going to try to get that adjusted so that will calm some people down who think that I don't know what I'm doing. Anyway, here's what we expect, a drop in case activity. 1 month ago today, I opened up the report that came to me from the state, which I get every single morning, showing me the number of total tests that were performed by all providers in the county. The health department, the drug stores, the clinics, everything else. We all have to report those, okay? That specific number that day was over 350. I opened it up this morning, and this was for Friday, and I looked at what happened in the county yesterday. 27 people were tested. 350 to 27. It's just a matter of numbers, okay? The infection rate stays still pretty high. We're about 9 to 10%. Okay, but when you're looking at, and a month ago, it was 30%. So of that 350 people, 30% of them, almost 100, tested positive. You know, it was just bing, 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 bing. The bells and whistles were going off. Now it's dropped back down, so if you've got, if you got 20 of them or 30 or whatever it is, and your rate is only 10%, you're only seeing 2 to 3 people that are testing positive out of it. That's a marvelous sign that this wave is crashing. Okay.
Excuse me, how does home testing play
Impact that? Oh, you would bring that up.
You sticker, you.
Home testing is a unique little tool, but unless you get it verified, it really doesn't count. What it really is nice to have is if you have somebody that's really conscientious and they want to know that they can actually do this at home without having to jump in the car and go. And we have had people do it. I've had people call me, Bart, I don't mean to pick on you, but I know you're in the room. Say Bart picked one up at Walgreens or someplace, okay, and he wasn't feeling well when he did it, and he calls me up and says, Tom, I just took a home test and it's positive. I'm going to ask you what type of test was it, so I'll know, because we know the different brands that are out there. And then I'll ask you about your symptoms, and if it fits. He says, yeah, I know, because my brother's got it or somebody else, and I was around him. I'm like, okay, probability is it's good. I won't retest you. I'm going to go with the validity of what you've got based upon all those other factors. But for somebody that doesn't, or they're just curious, they want to take it, and believe me, I've had a lot of nervous people that just want to be tested. I mean, they'd test every day if they could. It's not necessary. So they're okay.
So you count that one if you verify that.
With that one, we would verify and we would enter it in, and we would put it in as probable. There's two differences: probable and confirmed. The ones that we run and we test and we have that result, that it's confirmed. There's no two ways about it. And there's all different types of testing now. I mean, we can do the antigen tests. Okay, we can still do the PCR tests, and we can also do the little finger stick blood test, so we can take a look. Well, what do you got going on in your system? Do you have the antibodies? So we can look at antibodies, I can look at PCR, and I can look at antigen. Antigen tests are very...
What's the difference between PCR and antigen?
Sure. Antigen tests, an antigen test is one that is most effective when a person is symptomatic. Okay? That's when it is. And what it looks for is it looks for a specific protein that the human body creates when it is infected by SARS-CoV2. That's what it's looking for. That's the only thing it'll find. Okay? The presence or not of that protein, and you know it's up here. So you know we can still, we don't have to go all the way up behind the eyeball like we did with the PCR test, the Polynese chain one. You know, wow, that would set you off. Let me tell you, but that's what it looks for. The PCR test actually looks for the virus itself. Okay, it is a lot more sensitive in the fact that it runs a lot more cycles and looking for it. It looks longer and deeper, and it looks for it. With the PCR test, we can actually see if you have the virus in your system. Okay, and what we found out early on was, yeah, we could find it, and then you'd get better, and you'd come back in 2 weeks. I'm fine, Tom. I need to go back to work, but I have to have a test that says I can go back to work. And we test you, and guess what? We still saw it. And you'd come back 2 weeks later, and we test you again, and we saw it still. So we found out we could chase ghosts. And we did. I feel really badly for some of those first people that got it. We tested them for 2-3 months and kept finding it, which led us to say, without question, this has got to stop. And so policies, or what we did in the counties is, no, we're not going to test you after X number of days until you get to this number of days, because then we shouldn't see it anymore. But we had to learn that. We had to find that out. So that's that. Now, the antibody test is exactly what it is. We take a droplet of blood, a finger stick, put it in, and that actually looks at the hemoglobin and looks for the T cells and the antibodies that are in your system and how prevalent they are, which is really kind of neat. So if you want to know, hey, is my vaccine working? Come in and ask for one of those. We'll stick your finger and we'll run it, and we'll get the result back in about 15 minutes, and we'll see if we can actually see the antibodies. It's a really nice way. I did that because at the onset, when we started taking vaccines, I'm like, I wonder if this works. I mean, I question things. I'm not a sheep. You know, I won't just follow it blindly. I questioned it, and I wonder, no, is this where we're at? So those are the 3 that we've got. They're a lot better now, and they're going to continue to get better, just like everything else does. The more you refine it, the better it will get. Okay, this new variants. This is where there's going to be so much more confusion in the public. They're going to say, okay, well, we all have had it now. Okay, because really, with Omicron, it came in and it got 2,600 people that refused to vaccinate. Think about it. You know, part of me on the outside said, yay. You know, I got you. Because I told you, and this was one of the things I said to people. We're going to get you one way or the other. You're either going to vaccinate or you're going to get sick. There isn't any 2 ways about it. It's a matter of time. Okay? And so now we have that 18,000, you round it down to those that have had, you know, the at least 2 and are correct for their age, and any others that, I mean, because we don't count the number of vaccines that we've provided. It's way more than the 18,000. But you look at those numbers, you calculate again those that weren't vaccinated that have been ill, and now they have natural immunity, which I don't know. I'm simplistic. If I can take a shot and have that protection, it beats the heck out of me being sick for 2 weeks. But some people just don't agree with me on that. No, it's got to be this way. I've got to have this. Okay, so I've got this group over here, and I've got this group here. Now I add them together, and that is giving me a much bigger chunk of my population. Okay, but it's not 100% yet. I don't know that it ever will be, because we've got new people being born and everything else. So we're going to have this go on and on and on. What will happen now, as we move into the next phase, is the next variant that comes through, if it comes through within the next 90 to 120 days or so, it won't find as many hosts. And it might just pass us right on by. Or it'll be very limited in who it will infect. What we don't know, however, is what will that variant look like. Okay? People, you were here earlier and I was mentioning it, this is a 9/11 type event where it will never go back to the way it was. We will never travel through airports like we did once upon a time. This will never be gone. There are too many reservoirs for this virus to hang out in. We know that it can exist in animals. Okay, we know that it can go back, and it will just wait for the population to have more people that can be infected again before it pops up again. So it's going to move from the pandemic disease that it is now, where it has infected everybody worldwide, to where it will start to regress, and it will pop up in pockets, and it will continue. And that's what's called moving into its endemic phase. Not that it's going to end, it's just a different phase of this. A lot of things that will happen with this recurring disease will help keep it under control. Something you probably haven't heard a lot about. You know, the mRNA vaccinations. Oh my God, they're experimental. This virus was an experiment. How many tinkered with it and they shouldn't have? Now, you know, my anger is the fact that we're not looking at how that happened, how it got out to this should never have happened.
Yeah, right.
And we're angry because I'm asking people to stay in for 10 days. See, so that people don't look to where they should. But anyway, the variation in the virus moving forward, we hope, will be lesser. We hope that it will find a point where it says, yeah, it's happy, we can survive, it can survive here, and it won't be anything worse than a cold. But we don't know that. It might be a sniffle, or the next one might come through and claim 1,000 lives. You don't know. So you have to respect it, either way. The reluctance for the new vaccines, you know, is immense. But there is a protein-based vaccine that has been tested. It's in its final phase of clinical trials. It's proving to be as effective as the mRNA vaccines. And what's exciting about this is it's based on the same type of vaccine structure that we have with influenza vaccine. I think I told somebody once, what's going to happen is this. We're going to find a way to be able to give you one booster every year that'll cover you for flu and for COVID. It's going to end up being damn near a cure for the common cold. Because that's what SARS-CoV2 is. Coronavirus is what causes the common cold. And if you're like me, you remember there's no cure for the common cold, but there sure are symptom relief things that you can buy for millions and millions of dollars every year at the drugstore. You know. So anyway, that's what's going to happen now. The mutations we don't know about, and those are the things I still think that when I think about what the worst case scenario, those are the things I'm most worried about. Is how bad will they be? When will they come through? We won't have any control of that. With influenza, we know that temperature and season really plays a big role in that. That, you know, our cold and flu season in Cowley County runs October 31 through March 31. Nobody's ever questioned me on that one. You know, how do you know that, Tom? You're not a doctor. Because I see that. You know, I got 7 years worth of evidence on that one. But the same thing. So I'm excited, I guess, about that. Because what I know is that I have 10,000 people in the county that will take that dang flu shot every year. Come, you know, hell or high water, they're there. They roll up the sleeves and they do it. And if we can keep that many people healthy and keep this down, one of the beautiful things about January, if there was anything beautiful, okay, was that I did not see large-scale infections in long-term care facilities. And you know why? Because we got everybody vaccinated in there, and the long-term care facilities listened to the public health officer, and when I said shut visitation down, they didn't question it, they just did it. I said, let it go for 3 or 4 weeks until we can get past this little bit, and it worked. Whereas in 2020, you know, in 2021, we saw that in those deals. Who got hit worse this time? Who got hit the hardest? The schools. The schools. So anyway, will this ever go away? No, it won't. I wish I could say that it will. Somebody says, Tom, when it will be over? I says, when I retire. Because then I'm going to pass the baton off to the next person. But we will learn to manage it. I really do think we will. And there's a lot of things that are out there that are encouraging. But I think the biggest problem that we've had, or the largest pandemic that we've truly had, is ignorance. And that people just, you know, this isn't about who I voted for. This isn't about anything like that. This is about protecting people's health. This is about trying to make our county safe for everybody, so that you can enjoy what's coming, you know, in the warmer springtime months with school activities, and then in the summer, because I want to go to the park. I want to listen to music. I want to go to the fair. I want to walk back in to the 50th iteration of the Walnut Valley Festival and have nobody look at me. And I just, you know, I'm looking forward to those things. So that's what's on my prayer list every day. You know, and that maybe this year we've seen the worst of it here in the winter, and that we'll have a nice, smooth sailing year coming in. Yes, ma'am.
A couple of questions. Right at the beginning, you mentioned you're waiting for your 4th shot.
Right.
When will that occur?
It's a time sequence. So depending upon which vaccine you received, you know,
Okay.
and the 2 big ones on the block were Moderna or Pfizer. There's a time period between. I've had some folks that had immunocompromised conditions that have gotten them a little bit quicker.
Yeah.
But generally after that, it's funny because the way they were sequenced, you had your initial dose, you had what we called at the time the prime dose, and then you got the boost dose. Well, wait, we can't say that now,
Right.
because it's going to confuse people. So we had the prime dose, we had the follow-up dose, that at that point in time we thought, okay, we're good to go, and for the most part we really were. And then I didn't feel like I was at any kind of risk all the way through the summer. I mean, truthfully. When Delta started to kick up again and all of that, I'm looking at that, I don't know, but yeah, I'm in good health, So I pushed mine out, and I took the 3rd dose about 100, it was probably about 120 days or so after that. No, it was longer than that. It was, because I was one of the early ones to get it. I forgot. So it was probably at least 6 months, maybe 7 months after I had that 2nd dose.
There's no guidance on that particular 4th
No,
dose
on
yet.
that one now, it's like,
Yeah.
it's been shortened, I think, like to 90 days for that 3rd dose.
Yeah.
So you can get 1, 2, 3 within.
Right, which I've had, but I'm
Yeah.
talking about going into
The
a
next
more
one then was scheduled to be between 90 and 120 days. I've not taken my 4th one
Okay,
yet.
so if you are in that category.
If you're in that category and you're ready to do it,
okay.
all you gotta do is give a call. I was
Okay.
telling folks, at the health department, we do it on Wednesdays
I
and
haven't done
Fridays.
anything, but I'll just ask one more,
Uh-huh.
I'll give other people a chance. People that have had the vaccine
Uh-huh.
and get COVID.
Yes,
The severity of the disease.
has
in
been
most
considerably
cases
less.
So that in itself is beneficial, because even with the flu, we may get the flu.
Right.
But we
Yeah.
may get a,
Exactly right. You see, my mother is 92 years old. My mother was diagnosed with COVID in a long-term care facility 3 weeks ago. Okay, scared me to death. Okay, so of course I couldn't go see her.
Right.
So she gets through their isolation protocol, and guess what they did for her? 10 days. That's all right.
Right.
Anyway, so she gets through the 10 days, and we're allowed to go in and see her again. And she's feeling okay, but not right.
Yeah.
I can tell mom was not right. Day 18, she starts coughing. And she starts complaining about chest pain. Okay. My mother has post-COVID pneumonia.
Okay.
Okay.
Scary.
Scary, frightening. COVID isn't what kills you.
Right.
It's a secondary infection that does. And we've seen that in probably 90% of the cases. Of all those deaths, the 100, there's probably only 10% of those that were directly because that person caught it and died within 10 to 14 days. The rest of them happened within a 30-day period.
I guess I will do
Yeah.
one more on the masks.
Yes, ma'am.
I wear mine again.
Go for it.
Everywhere.
Yep.
The reason is, again, I'm immunosuppressed,
Mhm.
but when Delta came along, even my doctor said, if you go in the grocery store and you're far enough away, it's not that contagious. But when Omicron came along, she said, start wearing your mask again.
Mhm.
But I have noticed one other thing. I haven't had the cold and flu since I've been wearing a mask. So I mean, you know, it's really a benefit for me. And if I have an asymptomatic case of it, I'm concerned that I could spread it to someone else
Right.
without the mask.
However, I will tell you this right now.
But that's what I'd like to have some information.
Asymptomatic cases generally mean that you don't have a peak load,
Okay,
a viral
so
load.
spreading it is more difficult.
So it's detectable through testing, yes.
Right,
But asymptomatically, the probability of you transmitting it from one to
Right.
another is very, very slight.
okay.
It is very slight. It really truly is. Sir.
Do you know if there's been discussions within the insurance industry, medical insurance, about non-vaccinated people, segregating them for different, I know that happened with smoking and several other things in our company. The insurance company broke those out into different categories, and you were charged different amounts. Because there is more expense, obviously.
I understand. Okay. I think it's a little premature because we're still in it. All that's going to do is just cause a greater firestorm politically. That will evolve. Remember I said we have to learn how to live with it? That is one of those evolutionary things, okay, that the industry will do. Much like I don't smoke, I'm a non-tobacco user, so I could qualify for a less, a lesser rate. If I keep my weight down, if I don't have any chronic illness, I'm less of a risk. That's all in actuarial tables.
Yeah.
Oh, trust me, it's going to be looked at.
Well, some of the
Yeah.
facilities that were being overrun were discussing the fact that we're getting so many non-vaccinated people who are taking places
Mhm.
for those who've been vaccinated, and
Right.
I don't think it ever happened, but there were
Yeah.
discussions.
Oh, and I agree. When we took a look at hospitalization rates and what was happening in critical care facilities, we saw a return to peak levels in January. Okay, we saw hospitals fill up. We saw COVID units fill back up again. We saw a real lack of bed space, and that was a major concern. The problem is this is an equal opportunity virus. It doesn't care who you are, it doesn't care how old you are. The original Wuhan variant and Alpha didn't like kids. I don't know why. I don't claim that I'll ever know why. I just know that the evidence shows it did not infect children. It infected adults, and it liked the elderly. Omicron said, not so much. Delta was, not so much. We'll take anybody. And so Delta opened that lock to the kids, okay? An Omicron said, I got an even better key. Because what that was, it became really readily transmissible early. Okay, and so what happens is, it put in play again exactly what we see every year with influenza, in that our kids are the vectors. They get it first, and then they take it home. That's why schools are so important to me as a public health officer, and watching what happens in the schools in a normal year. You know, in pre-COVID times, we wanted to know what was happening in the schools. Because when the school absentee rate started going up, we would look and we'd see what are we showing. Then we expected that immediate bump in the population, because nobody stayed home when they had the flu. Everybody was happy, you know. Oh, the new movie, let's go to the movies. You know, oh, oh, let's go to dinner. Oh, it's your birthday. Yeah, we got to go to the birthday party. You know, happy birthday. Here's the flu. I mean, I hate the flu. I just, if you've ever had it, it's you know, being sick with that is not fun. So that's why. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I don't expect to see anything like that happen. Not until we get further into this and it becomes more of that recurring thing. And like I say, I really do believe that probably by year 4, that shot that we get in the fall every year will be that. They're not going to be able to come up with a new vaccine every time there's a new variant. So the beautiful part about it are the people that actually know the science, that are doing the research, they're tearing it up right now. They're saying, okay, what else do we know? What do we know that hasn't changed? And what do we know that will not change about this? And let's build that vaccine to cover that issue that will never, ever change and block it. The problem with like Omicron was the variant was just enough that the key fit the lock so well. And it was able to get in quickly. If you had natural immunity, or if you had acquired immunity, your body recognized it, okay? But it was kind of slow to respond. Like we say, like with the flu shot. So you might have gotten a little bit that way. That's why we believe that it was less invasive for most people. But if you hadn't received that, you know, you didn't have it, and it was going to get you for the first time, then you would. I met several people in line that had it. You know, Jerry, what are you doing here? Oh, no, Tom, just, you know, got the sniffles, got the cough. Don't feel bad, don't have a fever, but I thought I'd better be checked. Bing, 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 you got it, you know. So, okay, go home. He says, well, I said, can you work from home? You know, that's one of the beautiful things we've had. We've seen we can work from home now. And things we couldn't do before. Now, some of us can't, but a lot of people can. And so, you know, we managed it. And here again, that was one. 7 days into it, he says, I'm feeling great. He says, come on by, I want to look. You know, I mean, mad scientist, Tom Langer. I want to see, you know. And we tested it again. Now, the amazing thing about antigen tests, somebody was asking me what's the difference. They're little cassettes, you know, like a little pregnancy test, you know, it lights up blue or green or whatever, you know, and you know the same thing happens with these. You have the control line and you have that line that shows the positivity. When you're positive and you're really, you know, I call hot, that thing just bright, yeah, it pops. Okay. When it's really faint, you know that protein is either in one of two areas. You're either coming in or you're going out. And that's why we can say that we can test you if we've known about it, that you've had it, and we see that line getting fainter and fainter, that we know then, okay, you're producing less of that antigen, you're coming out of it. And so, if you come to me the very first time and you tested and you tell me how you've been feeling, I really would like to say okay, but I'm kind of in a spot, because for us to confirm it, it goes on a test that we can take a look at and that we know is going to be valid. And so those are those gray areas. But the other thing is, we're willing to work with people. So if I have an employer that says, you know, Tom, they're all 20-somethings, and they're dancing around, you know, and they seem fine. I said, great, then let's line them up and test them, and if they're all good, we'll let them go back. You know, that's happening on campuses in Arc City and here in Winfield. The campus populations, and this second time through, they've had a little bit of it, but they've been pretty much left alone, and that's great. And they're testing all the time for it, so that works.
Well, I got tested a couple of times for cough and sneeze.
Yep.
It always came back negative.
And one of the other things that we'll do too, and what we've become quite great at, is testing for A and B, flu influenza A and B.
And there's some
it's there.
other cough too that they test for, RSV.
RSV.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nasty. Now generally RSV only attacks pediatric cohort,
Okay.
but this year there was a really nasty variant of that going around, that if you were over 60, it was worse than COVID. I mean, I had one gal, she was down for 3 weeks with that stuff. And I mean, it was
Mine
terrible.
lasted for weeks,
It was horrid.
so I wondered if that's what I had.
Yeah. Remember that when you go in and take a respiratory panel at a hospital, okay, there are thousands of viruses or infections that can affect your respiratory system. Those panels are set up to maybe run like the 10 most wanted. Okay, because that's what we're going to look for. That's the greatest probability. And you know, in 2020 when we first started doing this, we were depending upon hospitals to run panels for us sometimes, just to see if we could figure out what it was, because we had a whole lot of sick people in 2020 in the spring, and none of them tested positive. I mean, other than when Sam came on, and I can say his name because he sat in ICU and broadcast it to the world. But you know, when Sam was the first case that we found, and we believe we found him at the tail end, because he recovered so quickly, and he had been sick off and on from Thanksgiving through Christmas, you know, and then we didn't see him until April. And so, remember how I was saying we can chase a ghost? We found it through testing. That, oh, it was there. Now we had no idea. So he was having other respiratory issues, and this gentleman also had pre-existing conditions with heart condition. Okay, so he went in and was stabilized within the hospital. Within 10 days, we tested him again, and it was gone. And we're like, oh, this is interesting. Okay, so okay, they released him. His family didn't even want to pick him up. Everybody was afraid. So the man had to go home, tend for himself. 3 days later, he collapsed. He was taken to the hospital in Wichita, and he died on the table. And it was from heart. It wasn't from COVID, but it got attributed to COVID because that's how we found it. So, you know, is it 100% perfect? I don't know. But what we can point to is that there are, you know, the second death in Cowley County was an entirely different story. That was a person that had come here and was working in the meatpacking industry. He got sick. He came up and we tested him, and we said, you need to go see a doctor. And he didn't, because he was afraid. He wasn't afraid about the doctor. He was afraid that it would be found out that he was here without legal status. He collapsed and died in his home. Yeah. That happened real quick.
Now, are you tracking long-term COVID, and how do you do that?
Long COVID is a whole different beast. Yeah, we do, but it's on a case study type basis. I don't have really good numbers. I know of one gentleman who was in his 40s who traveled to Minnesota to go to work about a year ago right now, and he came back and didn't feel well, and he tested and he brought it home with him, and he went through it and he recovered, and one of the symptoms that he had was tinnitus that came out of it, or a constant ringing in his ears. It is now a year later, and that still has not gone away. And it's so bad that it gives him migraine headaches and things of that nature. And he's gone to specialists and everything else, and there's, you know what they tell earplugs. Nobody, the man's, you know, had MRIs done and everything else, and, you know, we always joke, you know, they took an x-ray of my head and found nothing. And that's the kind of situation. They find nothing, but yet the condition persists.
In a heard anecdotally about fatigue and
Oh.
the children and, can only make it like through a half a day of school, that kind of stuff.
Adults, one of the former city commissioners here in Winfield took ill with it last summer, and end of the year he was still telling me, man, he says it's rough, So yeah, it's a real deal, and you don't know exactly that. COVID has a nasty way of getting into that system and affecting things other than your upper respiratory system, and that's bad. I feel bad.
Any questions yet?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I know you can't control, what the newspaper, the media in general report.
We wish you could.
But one thing I would like to see when a number is quoted, 85 people in the hospital, and 3 of them were vaccinated, or conversely, 80 of them were not vaccinated. I'd like to see that, my curiosity, but I guess to validate my position on.
We tracked that going in last year through Delta. We abandoned it with Omicron because we couldn't keep up.
I didn't.
And the numbers blew up on both sides.
Yeah, I can see that.
But through the Delta wave, 90%. 90% of the infections were to those who were unvaccinated. Okay, 10% were in the vaccinated population. I know it works.
Oh, yeah.
I'm living proof of it.
Yeah.
For me to have been around it as
Because
much
you're
as
around it all the time.
and I have yet to get it. You know what that does? This goes back to the old Middle Ages, when witches and all that, where they would knock on the bark of a tree to bring the spirits out.
Whatever works.
Whatever works. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, and I didn't, you can always reach out to me, shoot me an email at the health department or call. I'll get back with you. And Pam, thank you again for
Yes, thanks for coming.
inviting me to the meeting.
Sure.
I hope I don't have to come
Again.
and talk about bad things again. Maybe I'll come next time and we'll talk about other things.
We'll have a
Better.
celebration. How's
Yeah,
that?
I'm
Or we'll
looking forward
celebrate
to
that you don't have anything to tell us
To
about
tell you
this
about.
anymore.
Yeah.
Well,
And
thanks
again,
a bunch.
I'm gonna leave these
Yeah,
masks up,
that'd be great.
and if they don't all go, Pam, maybe you guys could take them and
Yeah,
get them
oh,
out.
we'll find homes for them. Great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Tom.
Thank you.
Appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
That's great.